All right, so yes, recordings are working. Folks, I have no words but to say just a fabulous year. I have no other words for it. Fabulous year. The tools of which we're using, knock on wood. Make sure if you ever knock on wood, it's real wood. But anyway, we have the recording devices. It is recording, number one. So number two, if I sound a little more boisterous and excited because we really did have a fantastic trading week, it's just been, I have no words. It's just awesome. So I'm going to try to temper down my excitement because it always is nice to get these types of trading sessions and be right, use the tools, and the tools have been doing a great job for me here. And I hope that translates to a great job for you guys as well, because that's really what it's all about. So first off, I know the recording's working. I see visual. I just want to make sure the audio is just good for you guys right now. So is it, how is the audio? Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Too loud, too soft, just right? Where are we going with this? Excellent. Thanks very much. All right. So what I wanted to go through today and in this session, and I'm going to start from the beginning, is what the heck is buy 5 and sell 5? And how can you utilize this, and what is it based off of? So for what I wanted to do and what I was finding is that while scan number 1, which is just as a reminder, scan number 1 is a daily buy when the weekly's in a buy mode. And I would classify that as a continuation pattern. So, for example, let's see. Well, we didn't get a lot of those today because everything's been kind of on an upside. So let's take Newmont Mining. What the heck, right? So basically, if the market is in a weekly buy mode, right, generates a weekly and then has a 2 or 3 day pullback, and then generates a weekly. So this particular buy signal back at the end of June, right? If I could draw straight, and I can't, so I apologize for that. This would be after, if you can imagine, we're in a weekly buy mode at the 2nd week of June, right? And this is approximately the 3rd week of June. Obviously, it's June 28th, 9th, whatever it is. All right, so how do I make things more exact? If I go up here to my set the tracking mode and I go to window and click on it and click on that date, it was 6/29. So I know it was 6/29. All right, so that's where I can get my my dates, find out what the signal was, etc., etc. Truthfully, a high close doji came on 6/24. The weekly signal right here. The weekly signal was on June 3rd, the end of June 3rd. So Newmont Mining, for example, generated a weekly buy signal at the end of June 3rd. So that means June 6th, you came in, and after that big run-up, you had like 1, 2, almost 3 weeks of pullback. So going with either a high close doji or buying a breakout, this would have been a continuation buy signal. So it's kind of a good example of what buy number 1 is, where it's a continuation of a short term while the higher degree time frame weekly is in a buy mode. So that's when I start looking for buy signals number 1, that's a great buy signal. It's awesome, no doubt about it. Most of you started off with the regular package, and the regular package by any stretch of the imagination isn't basic. But it did come with other criteria or scans. A daily buy signal near pivot support when the weekly's in a buy mode. Well, that's a little advanced, but let's say, for example, the market rallies, pulls back all the way near support. If it's in a weekly buy, and all of a sudden I got a daily buy signal near support, man, that's going to launch and give me some pretty decent setups, right? So, for example, we had, like even yesterday, things that had provided, if it wasn't yesterday. Let me go back on the 12th. I think it was the 12th. One of these days in here, we had a lot of different buy signals that generated daily buys, while the weekly, for an example, this is Halliburton. It's been in a weekly strong uptrend, needless to say. And now as we start the new month, here's the pivot. We got a buy signal, and I can take a position based on, this is a scan of a daily buy signal near support, while the weekly's in a buy mode. This helps me to define a little bit better of a criteria of when to look for specific buy signals. Scan number 3, daily buy signal near pivot support. That's just an outright daily. And then scan number 4, daily buy signal, no filter. What the VIP package came with was something that I had been experimenting with, because I really wanted to filter something out, since I respect, and many of you have been either A, in the trading room, attended my seminars, or possibly you get the planning and scanning, and you know that we do a lot of work with, to say the least, with volume. So let me explain a couple things here of what Scan 5 is and how we can extrapolate better information from it. Scan 5, by the way, helped me to define a trade setup and make money, especially as I was looking at, if I may point out to you guys, Scan 5 helped me to define a setup, not just in the, just recently, a couple little trades, and many of you, FITB, I was starting to see a buy signal here, and one of the things that populated was this little move right there. And I'm going to go through that, and this is Fifth Third Bank, by the way, so it did help me to make a good trade decision based on this criteria, and that's why this scan is kind of important to me. So let's get started on Scan 5 and define what Scan 5 premise is based off. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to format analysis, and I'm going to go over and I'm going to get rid of stochastics. So I'm just going to, I'll just turn it off. What the heck. All right. So, and then I'm going to remind me to turn it back on. It's going to hurt my feelings to do this, but I'm going to turn off, and we're going to try to cover today the volume indicator as well, and its usefulness and purpose of what this special volume indicator is all about. So I'm going to turn that status, turn that off. All right. So what helps me to define a better buy signal? Volume, of course, right? There are times that a market could be in a range. It could be times where I want to be a buyer of a market and it didn't generate a weekly buy signal yet. I mean, after all, we're probably going to get a buy signal, you know, sometime at the low of a channel, or maybe near monthly pivot support, and it's going to come a little bit late. So instead of buying the absolute low, we might find ourselves getting a daily buy signal here, or looking at a high closed doji. And then yesterday, why I was looking at this is because of the high closed doji, but most importantly, if you note real quickly, if I can draw a straight line as best as I possibly can, what did we see that happened here? And let me get over to, so just to line things up. All right, so what happened yesterday towards the close? What casual observations, if I get, I'm teeing this up for you so I can get this into focus for you. There we go. All right. So I'm looking at Fifth Third Bank, and at this point, the only information that you have on your screen, of course, is what? The price. You have your pivots. We had a buy signal. We had formed, this is yesterday, right here, hard to see it. We had already formed a daily high closed doji the prior day. Okay? Now, let's pretend right now it's towards the close. And I can see that this market, this is the trade. The information, it's a couple minutes before the close. What do I see? I see the momentum histogram is what? It crossed the zero line this day. It crossed the stayed above the zero line, stayed above the zero line. It's still above the zero line, and the green is above the yellow moving average. So this would be considered a positive momentum. The momentum indicator is positive. It's growing. More importantly, if this is one day, that's another day, that's another day, that's another day, this is another day, so you can see the grids mark each day. Consecutively speaking, we have several days of accumulation of positive momentum by the histogram, right? And we also have positive accumulation over 3 days of growth or increase in valuation and on-balance volume. So more importantly, to be honest with you, I probably should have been buying this that day right there, is when I should have been buying based on that signal with that gap higher. So why is that? Because we still had a valuation and increase 1, 2, 3, 4 days. 4 days. The value of volume increased these 4 days. And a signal was born. A buy signal was born. In that time period, that same time period, 1, 2, 3, 4 momentum bars. Even though this is a negative, this is less negative, this is positive, this is more positive. So we had a confluence of 2 positive things. The momentum indicator was positive, the volume was positive, a buy signal was born, and this, my friends, gives me a better buy setup. It came with positive shift in momentum. It came with an accumulation of volume. So honestly, I should have been buying and put out Fifth Third Bank at 1735. The next day we have a high close doji. Well, all right, the low is here and the trigger to buy is there. So you probably want to look for maybe a pullback, and all of a sudden it's towards the close. The volume is still appreciating. The momentum is positive, right? The scan shows it's positive. So scan number 5 was really helpful in determining that this stock, this instrument, should be seeing follow through. Now, because of my own teachings and because of my own knowledge of the markets, this is the pivot. You will notice that you have this gray line in the sand. What does that gray line represent? Last conditional changes, right? A last conditional change. Market closed not 1 day but 2 days above a last conditional change. It also closed 2 days above what? The monthly pivot. It closed above a 3-bar reversal swing high. I mean, I've got nothing else to say that this was definitely a trade that had been taken from the long side. This has the earmarks of everything that is in the core of my bone marrow of what I teach and what I've created. If I didn't put out this recommendation, it was only if I did not take this trade or put this trade recommendation out, it would have only come to the conclusion of either A, I didn't see it by not doing my work, I was lazy, or I didn't have my machine on and see it. So, I mean, there it is. So when I look at a trade and I see, hey, something special is happening, these are the kind of little nuances, and now I can make the decision. I'm going to buy close to the close, right? I'm going to buy close to the close, and I'm going to have a stop somewhere within reason, because if this market is truly bullish, we should see further advancing. Yesterday afternoon, I put a tweet out. By the way, I think specifically, I didn't give details, but I did get a heads up. Many of you are familiar with this. If not, just go to Person's Planet. There's the Twitter logo. I wish Twitter stand here yesterday. After basic candidate holding well, look at Rose at Fifth Third. There it is. NRF, or a 10-day play. Emails coming shortly. Well, it took a little bit longer for me to create it and send it out, but moral of the story, there it was. I was watching this, stalking this, and this scan particularly helped me make money on that. Now, here's what happened. I mean, the stock was up, and it provided a nice little profit, and I'm still thinking that the market's got the potential, the earmarks to get up to its April highs, as I was saying. The April highs, if you can imagine, here's the April highs, somewhere around in there. If you can see the April, this is Fifth Third Bank, April highs, the June highs, just, you know, right back. If this is a trading range, we should get back up into that zone right there. We have pivot resistance, etc., etc. Strong volume today. We had more positive momentum today, so the market, the trade gapped higher, closed closer to the high, closed above the open. It's got a lot of positive things going for it. Strong volume and strong momentum. So this is how we utilize the tools at hand. Obviously, if you get a daily high close doji and you miss the first day, the second day, at least kind of follow the market. And, you know, if you got a strong volume breakout, and you know, while I look at this as if volume does tend to lead the market, then by all stretch of the imagination, at least at this point in time, right, at least at this point in time, volume was a good leading indicator and suggested that we should see follow through the upside. Now, because I didn't catch it at 1735, I probably got to maybe lower my expectations of what I can expect, but at least I'm profitable. You know, it's funny that people say, well, John, it's not that much money. And I always say, but it's money. You know, if I want a higher rate of return, then I'm going to be introducing myself to higher risk. More risk, more return. It's real simple. It's a simple formula, and I didn't invent it. If there's the higher the risk, the higher the reward. The lower the risk, the lower the reward. That's generally how it works, right? With options, buying a tremendously deep out of the money option and paying nothing for it, if you hit it right and the market explodes to the upside, you have unlimited profit. You have a very high leverage working for you. But the chances of you doing that consistently are slim to none and slim left town. So we need to sink our teeth into something that's concrete, that works well, and you know, you run scans and you look to see what happens. And that's what I can tell you how I've made money and how I just recently made money, and what scan number 5 is based off and uses and is based off. It's based off A, a price move, B, it's based on an accumulation of volume, and C, confirmation that over a few periods of time that we've seen an appreciation in the momentum histogram reading. Now, that is scan number 5. This is one of my proprietary, my own thinking, my own tools that I've used. I've had this for a while. I know some of you have seen it and said, when do we get that? It was something that, you know, many people would look at my platform and say, well, how come I don't have that? It's because, well, no offense, because it's mine. And so, to be honest with you, Jeff comes into the office, and Jeff would see and like, wow, that looks pretty cool, and you should do this, and you know, maybe give a chance if people want it, and that's how we made the VIP club. So it's something. It's just an added tool, which is really cool in my opinion. I mean, it works. It's helped me make money. The same concept can be said for sell signals. Sell number 5, same thing. All right. So with that said, on buy signal number 5, let me share with you something that's very interesting here. Right now, my scans are all timed to be running. So in the middle of, I guess, putting together the plug group at 4:30, I should have remembered that the scans are running live. So any questions so far on scan 5? If you do, type it in the room, and we will cover scan number 5. Now, VIP's also got, I did something, and TradeStation scanner encountered a problem. Sorry for the inconvenience. So, blah, 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 blah. So, all right. By the way, if you get this error message and you think you're alone, you're not. I get them too. Again, TradeStation is not my platform. So TradeStation's experience problem needs to shut down. Okay, so I'm going to save yes to all. I'll put the phone on, we're going to put it on mute for a second, and I am going to reboot. So just bear with me. Yeah, I actually was excited about showing the scans, scan number 5, how to alter it and alter it in different time frames. So you have that capacity to alter, and pretty much all my scans, you can change the time. Even though it says like a daily HCD, you can change that to a 60-minute. If it's any of the components of what you can change those listings. I just would tell you, and I've said this before in other pug meetings, don't forget to turn it, as soon as you get done, don't forget to turn it back to your original scan time frame. So in other words, let's say, for example, you got the weekly high close doji. So weekly HCDs, weekly LCDs, high and low close dojis on a weekly basis. Once a month, I want to find out what and if any monthly, without having to create one more space. I just want to change it. I can always just change and make a monthly scan, because I'm only doing it once a month, and if something populates that makes me warm and fuzzy, and I see something that really pops off the charts, then I can change that back once from a weekly to monthly, and then back to weekly. But if I forget to change it back to weekly, it's going to say weekly, and every week goes by, it's not going to show the weekly. So make sure that you go through your scans if you go and alter the time frame. So like a daily high close doji, just a daily one, I could change that to 60 minutes and just run it 60 minutes. I can change it to 4 hours, every 4 hours if you wanted to do that, right? It's one of the things that I like to use. If you go down to format, here's what I was referring to. Next to JP Daily Triggers, well, that's one. That's just the PPS. Then if you open this up, you have your OBV up. And if you open this up, you'll see that you have your histogram up. Now, let's say I want to change this to buy signals and change a different time frame. Just remember, if you're changing the time frames, you have to make sure that all three of these are three different criteria combined into one scan. The daily triggers, okay, the OBV, and the histogram. You can see it right here. So you know that I'm not making this up, combining these all for you, all right? Except for this OBV comes with one other little minor positive. Generally speaking, the OBV has to be above the moving average. So that is a little bit of an extra secret sauce there that we wanted to make sure that you are aware of. The histogram positive changes. So if the histogram is negative and then it flips to positive, obviously that's a positive, and it needs to show a positive accumulation. And you'll notice the yellow line, that the histogram, right, even though you are looking at a combination of below the moving average, but it had a positive value, and then the third bar, the market is above the moving average, and so is the fourth bar. So this shows positive momentum, this shows positive momentum, and that's what we're looking for, a positive momentum, both confirmed with not just the PPS buy, but also with the momentum indicator as well as the volume. And that's the power behind scan number 5. The reverse is true for sell signals. So let's say you want to get a really defined, strong, weekly, longer-term sell signal. So basically, all you really need to do, or a longer-term weekly buy signal, all you need to do is to make sure that you change this from a daily. You have to change all three. You have to change the reversal to weekly. You have to go down here and change the OBV to weekly. And you have to go over and change the histogram to weekly. Drop down, change to weekly. Now you can look at quality sell signals with those three now values added into scan number 5. So this one is This is a very powerful scan because it's not just, hey, show me a PPS buy signal, show me a daily and a weekly in the same sync in a continuation, but under a market conditional change with volume, with attitude, right? That's what this scan number 5 was reflecting. Very powerful. Just make sure that after you run scans, which I'm not going to run this scan right now just because I don't want things to break. I'll do them later. I absolutely do change these myself, and you have the opportunity that are already pre-built on TradeStation to do daily, weekly, monthly, 60 minutes, and you can change the time frame there. If you click down where it says more intervals, you can change to how many minutes, interval settings. Well, what is 4 hours? 240 minutes. So just change that to 240, and now you've got literally a 4-hour. That's how you would get a 4-hour scan. Just go to minutes, click on minute, and change it to 240 minutes. Gives you a 4-hour scan. What does that translate to? What? Half a trading day, right? Considering the fact you could start that from 9:30 Eastern. So anything that generated from 9:30 Eastern on a 4-hour scan is going to give you every 4 hours starting at the market open at 9:30. So that would be running a scan at approximately what? Right after 1:30. If you're beginning your scan from the open of 9:30 in the morning and you run a 4-hour scan and you do it at 12 o'clock, okay, what are you looking, what is it going to, the result's going to be from? It's going to be from the prior day, right? Because it's prior to 1:30. 4 plus 1:30 is from what? The prior day's results. You want to run this scan right at as soon as that bell tolls and hits 1:30, and then you can run that scan and it'll give you your 4-hour interval. So don't forget the logic behind what you're asking the computer to deliver to you. Very important, okay? So, what next? We wanted to cover what it's based on. I wanted to cover today how to change the settings. More importantly, not just change it on weekly, but daily. And how do you change it on a different time that is previously selected? I'm sure many of you are already familiar with how to change these time frames, but just so we're on the same page, any time you want to change the value, it should say more intervals, and just go to minute and then just change that to 240 or change to whatever minute you want. 120 is 2 hours, etc., etc. So, ironically, buy number 5 does give. Now, considering the fact that the market, in its current form, in order to get an advanced decline this strong, an advanced decline this strong, an advanced decline this strong, every single index has extremely strong breadth, right? It's always important, and how I now would say, well, what makes my mind think? What makes my mind think? Well, I don't know what makes it think, but how does my mind start to ask questions about whether I should be scanning more for buy signals or sell signals? It's real simple. I don't know what to think. I get in a routine. I just look at the scan results every single day, and I just look and see what's populated. A couple important areas. Where are we in location to support and resistance? So right now, I notice that the Qs are at monthly resistance. I notice that the S&Ps, while not quite at longer-term quarterly pivot resistance, I can just come straight to what? My main page and go to stocks longer term, and incidentally look at my current layout and go up on down the line here, so to speak, and let's go to, let's go and put it in order. Well, yeah, that's fine. We'll put it in kind of alphabetical order. All right. So if I go and I look at alphabetical order, first and foremost, if I look at the quadrant that says of my radar screen that's looking for what? The monthly time frame. It's also next to where you have quarterly time frames. If I know the market's rallied, first thing I want to ask myself, where are we in terms of current price to resistance, both monthly and quarterly? As you all know, gray means that that particular market, which second one down shows diamonds. If it's gray, it means we are beyond its monthly resistance. So right now, I know that we are, as far as the monthly pivots are concerned, we are just slightly above the monthly resistance in the diamonds. So that's an understatement, so to speak, because this was the monthly pivot resistance, and we are substantially higher than by about 230 Dow points from monthly pivot resistance. So right now, I just, by just looking at the board here, in the top sectors of the marketplace, and the top sectors, I think it's a good enough both main sector and subsector, as well as components. Components being like looking at the gold miners, looking at commodity like gold, looking at TLT. TLT is in here somewhere. There it is. I did this alphabetically. Looking at UNG, natural gas, USO, the ETF on crude oil. So looking at the board, I have what? Transportation, in real estate investment trusts. I've got the KIE, which is insurers. I've got KRE regional banks, oil services, semiconductors, and then you get your typical X factor, which are your main sectors. XHB, of course, is the peripheral home builders, such as the components that go into a house, with also some home builders. ITB is right here, and that is your actual home builders ETF, the guys that actually build the homes. XHB is what we call, what I consider the peripheral, like a Pier 1 Import, a Bed Bath & Beyond, the guys that make carpet, Mohawk Industries, things of that nature. XLB, materials, E-energy, financials, industrials, technology, staples, utilities, healthcare, consumer discretionary. So looking at the board, this sector ETF, if you ever choose to add anything, all you really need to do is just go insert a blank row and add anything you want in there that you think might be of importance to you. I like to put it at the sector ETFs at the top, and then I look at, of course, where are each of these sector or these segments of the market in relationship to their pivots. So I know that we're having a really strong month because the majority, I mean, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of these segments are not just at resistance, they're gray, they're beyond resistance, right? So one of which is, who's this guy? OIH. OIH is 10%, 11% away from resistance, and it's 8% away from support. Oh, what a coincidence. It's blue. It's almost in the midpoint of the range, and I can see that immediately by looking at this one board. So, all right, what has this got to do with scan number 5? A lot. Because I'm looking at this going, scratching my head saying we have these sectors at pivot resistance. You know what? I think like XME, which is the metals and mining index, I can start to get sub-sector specific and start to run daily scans as we are now beyond resistance. If you look at the XME, and I'll just highlight this line, and we go through the list, and I go, all right, where are we in relationship to the current quarterly resistance? XME is 2788. While we're not at resistance yet, quarterly resistance is 2849. We have several sectors already. Well, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3 that are already at quarterly resistance. They're not only at quarterly resistance, but they're beyond monthly resistance. So this would be a good example. IYT, transportation. It's beyond monthly resistance. Here's the monthly pivot, the red line right there. I've got monthly pivots with the weekly chart, and we're already at quarterly pivot resistance. So what I might want to do is go to my scanner and then go scan number 5 and then format this. And if you note, all right, so I do know that I'm on daily. Let's see, did I alter and change this and forget to put it back? And the answer is no, daily. So in a situation like this, I have already on my screen stocks within the transportation sector, and I know today we didn't generate a lot of sell signals. So what I might want to do, for example, is change, and this is when I will do it. When I notice that a sector itself is beyond monthly resistance and at quarterly pivot resistance, and the quarter's kind of beginning, I'm going to start to run scan an intraday basis to show me stocks that might start to generate intraday sell signals in that sector. The market's already overbought, and that's going to help me to pick up some trade opportunities. Now, what kind of trade opportunities would we be talking about? Well, for one, I could sell some out-of-the-money call premium for some short-term play. If the market's at resistance, it's probably a good idea that if it's at resistance on multiple time frames, and if I start getting intraday quality sell signals, meaning the market's selling off on high volume, giving me short-term intraday sell signals, the logic behind that makes perfect sense. Let me repeat that. I already know that right now I've got a sector at quarterly, monthly, higher degree time frame resistance targets. Do I want to sell it blindly? No. But if I start to run intraday scans, show me, are these stocks showing not just a PPS sell signal, but are they starting to show intraday, like a 60-minute, 240, 4-hour time frames? Are they starting to show in the ITB? Are they starting to show signs of weakness? So that is one of the ways that I can go here, and I'm going to go to Format. All right, I'm going to go to Symbol Universe. I'm going to select a Symbol Universe, TradeStation symbol list, and I can go to a industry group, of course, and I want motor vehicles, I want transportation. I just click transportation as a whole and hit run. I'm going to run transportation as a whole to find out, am I getting stocks with intraday sell signals? So that's how you're going to get the most out of the scans and what the difference is of scan number 5. I want intraday sell signals, for example. I want to see if I'm getting quality sell signals. Am I starting to see in the transportation sector itself what a scan number 5 would be, just the reverse of for a sell, the reverse for a buy. Well, if all of a sudden, if you look over here, what's the difference between that sell signal right here and this sell signal right there? Well, actually, if you look at it, the volume did what? It was started to go down multiple days in a row, right? You notice that it's also, the volume is below the moving average. Gee, what a coincidence. And are we making newer lows in the momentum indicator, right? So a quality sell signal would probably give us an idea. We're at resistance. This is a great example, by the way. We're at resistance, and now I can start looking for what? Follow through to the downside. So, you know, of course, the reverse is true. I get a buy signal here, and by the time I get a buy signal, is the volume up? Is the momentum making higher readings as well? So that will probably be more meaningful for me to trust the buy signal with that criteria rather than doing it by hand, because let's face it, in the heat of the moment, going through 7,000 or so stocks a day looking for the greatest opportunities, your mind is probably not going to be remembering to look at that or to look at this. That's what scan number 5 does for us. Very powerful, great lesson to learn of why we've combined this and the flexibility and the logic behind when to choose this scan. Obviously, I'm not going to look at scan number 5 for sell signals when the market's at support. I mean, it doesn't make sense. But if we're at resistance after a big, and you know, that would imply that there's been a rally. Well, this is ITV, and of course the transportation sector, we know there's been a rally. This is a little-known company called FedEx. Excuse the sarcasm. But looking at FedEx, which is identified as a bearish month. Why? Blue is below gold. The market came all the way back up to pivot resistance. Now, again, this is your what? Monthly. I got daily chart with monthly pivots. So beautiful thing happened. You had a buy signal way back here. Last conditional change, last conditional change, last conditional change, last conditional change. So market is in an uptrend. Actually, this buy signal, same thing, would have generated the right criteria. Volume was on a surge. The histogram was up, so that would have been a valid buy signal on scan number 5. So on sell signal scan 5, we don't have a volume deterioration. So first off, we don't have a sell signal. Second off, we don't have a volume deterioration. But on an intraday basis, if I change this to, let's say, a 60-minute, oh, interesting. So from a short-term swing trade perspective, just looking at this, you know, from a trade perspective, how many bars? 1, 2, 3, 4 bars went down, and volume went down in 4 bars, and the histogram went down in 4 bars. So this combination would give me a quality sell signal. That sell signal came on an erosion of both volume and, of course, the histogram came down. If I wanted to change this time frame, and again, for looking for sell signals, then I can run that scan as I've outlined. So there comes a rhyme and a reason as to when we're looking for buy signals, what scan number 5 has behind it, and as far as any you know, ways to alter it, you now have information on how to change those time frames and why and when you would change from a daily to an intraday basis. I hope you found, and I do apologize for the inherent problems associated with the technology. However, I think you know, what I wanted to cover in today's session was some of the details behind Scan 5, give you a chance to ask some questions, and more importantly, just say, okay, well, you know, when you bounce around, what are you focusing on between radar and scans? Well, I bounce around by looking at, you know, what's the real inherent health of the market. I think right now we're obviously reflecting a fairly overbought market conditions, especially in potentially these 3 sectors of the market, which XHB, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, XHB, or no, excuse me, XHB, there it is. XHB is the one of the sectors that is actually at and beyond monthly pivot resistance and is now also at quarterly pivot resistance. So I'm going to be looking for what? Is this market really overbought? If it is, and we're going to start to fail, we better start to see what? Stocks in the XHB demonstrate some sell signals. So I'll be looking for intraday, 60 and 240-minute sell signals, and I'll be also looking for daily sell signals. That's when I start to attack or start to stalk or start to monitor individual sectors when I see that they are well beyond monthly pivot resistance but also near quarterly pivot resistance. At the beginning of the year in January, this is what saved our ass and made us a lot of money as I came into the room, and I know a lot of people were looking at getting short in the hole, and yet we had pretty much every stock was either at, and I mean every stock, not just the sector ETFs, but everything was at quarterly, if not, and I know many of you were in the room at that time, quarterly support. It was just all solid. This whole thing was lit up like a proverbial Christmas tree. Everything was at support. How do you sell once everything's at support? Rule number 1, don't sell products at support. Rule number 2, don't buy at resistance. Those are just the minor rules. So when I jump around, quote unquote, John, you jump around, I'm just jumping to see what the quality of the market, where is the market? If I want to figure out where a market's going to go, I got to ask myself, where the hell has it been and where is it currently at? Right now we have 3 sectors of the market that are at beyond monthly resistance and are at quarterly pivot resistance. They might be considered slightly overbought. Therefore, I would run scan cell number 5 in that case and start looking for intraday sell signals. At the very least, those 3 segments, I could look at ETFs, leveraged ETFs, and when we come in August, you guys, as part of the VIP PUG members, we are doing a special class on Saturdays, and we'll talk about this whole ETF component segment of the market rather than doing gold nugget, for example, or what I should have done instead of looking at KRE or a specific regional bank like Fifth Third, I should have just put out the recommendation to buy FAS. But as it is, it was good enough. So that's part of what I would be showing you guys. Many of you which already know that, but FAS, for example, when we look at and you have the opportunity to run these scans. So what's kind of cool is even on an intraday basis, setting up these particular criterias. First and foremost, here is a beautiful little setup here, a buy signal, and again, with that buy signal, by the time, and I hope that's lined up correctly, at least you have a move above what? The moving average. The momentum is positive. That validated that is a significant buy signal. So it's a matter of maybe pull back to the moving averages. Anyway, very nice trend run and a very healthy move at that with FAS. Anyway, as we've seen follow through. Right now, we are already at monthly pivot resistance, so kind of tough to say, hey, let's buy the resistance at this point in time. Anyway, I'm going to stop it right there. I think I did cover the material I wanted to. We lost people. I think when I closed out the room, I must have kicked people out. My bad on that one. I'll redo a recording and we'll send it out so it'll be smooth as silk. But I think you deserve to hear the presentation. If you're here, I'm here, and hopefully today topic for this PUG meeting helped give you some insightful knowledge on how Scan 5 works, how to make it better, and when to use it. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time, and I hope you found value and usefulness out of what you got so far, because it has been one powerful tool to use. And just pinch me, because I don't know when this party's going to end, but it is something special. Thank you always very much.